The Yakovlev Yak-28 was a swept-wing, turbojet-powered combat aircraft used by the Soviet Union. Produced initially as a bomber, it was also manufactured in reconnaissance, electronic warfare, interceptor, and trainer versions, known by the NATO reporting names Brewer, Firebar, and Maestro respectively. Based on the Yak-129 prototype first flown on March 5, 1958, it began to enter service in 1960. Design and development, it was first seen by the West at the Chisinau Air Show in 1961. Western analysts initially believed it to be a fighter rather than an attack aircraft and a continuation of the Yak-25M, at the Euro, and it was designated flashlight. After its actual role was realized, the Yak-28 bomber series was redesignated Brewer. The Yak-28 had a large mid-mounted wing, swept at 45 degrees. The tailplane set halfway up the vertical fin. Slats were fitted on the leading edges and slotted flaps were mounted on the trailing edges of the wings. The two Tumansky R11 turbojet engines, initially with 57 kN thrust each, were mounted in pods, similar to the previous Yak-25. The wing-mounted engines and bicycle-type main landing gear were widely spaced, allowing most of the fuselage to be used for fuel and equipment. It was primarily subsonic, although Mach 1 could be exceeded at high altitude. Total production of all Yak-28s was 1,180. Operational history, it was in a Yak-28 that Captain Boris Kapustin and Lieutenant Yuri Yanov performed an heroic act on April 6, 1966. When one of the engines on their aircraft stopped, they managed to divert their aircraft from a housing estate in West Berlin into Lake Station Paragraph Inc. Both heroes were posthumously awarded the Medal of the Red Banner. Their bodies, along with the wreckage, were raised from the lake by British troops, while British Bricksmith agents covertly retrieved important top-secret material from the plane including the engines, and the radar system. The Yak-28P was withdrawn in the early 1980s, but trainer and other versions soldiered on until after the fall of the Soviet Union, flying until at least 1992. The reconnaissance and ECM aircraft were eventually replaced by variants of the Sukhoi Su-24. Variants: Yak-129, prototype of Yak-28. Yak-28, tactical bomber. Initial production version. Built-in small numbers without radar. Yak-28B, production of Yak-28 with weapon aiming radar fitted, and various improvements such as fittings for JATO bottles. Production number is unknown. Yak-28L, tactical bomber with ground-controlled targeting system using triangulation from ground-based transmitter sites. A total of 111 built. Yak-28I, tactical bomber with the internal targeting system Initiative A2 360-degree ground mapping radar. A total of 223 built. Yak-28 UVP prototype, a single Yak-28 converted for testing short takeoff and landing techniques with JATO bottles and braking parachutes. Yak-28U, dual-control trainer with a second cockpit in the nose for student pilots. Prototype in 1962. A total of 183 built. Yak-28R, a dedicated tactical reconnaissance version of the Yak-28I, with increased headroom under the pilot's canopy, increased nose glazing with a sloping rear bulkhead, Initiative A2 radar, and 5 interchangeable pallets containing various mission equipment fits. Prototype in 1963. A total of 183 built. Yak-28 Storadian's prototype first use of senior chemical warfare aircraft for dispensing dust or liquid agents from underwing tank applicators. Though recommended for production, none were delivered to the VVS. Yak-28 Storadian's second use of senior tactical reconnaissance aircraft fitted with an active radio radar jammer. Production was on a very small scale. Yak-28 TARK, television reconnaissance system to send real-time images to a ground base. Backup provided by a 190mm focal-length still camera. Yak-28RR, radiation intelligence aircraft with R8311-100 air sampling pods, for gathering samples of nuclear tests. The pods were specially designed for the Yak-28 era but became standard fit for all subsequent radiation intelligence gathering aircraft. Modification of a number of existing Yak-28R aircraft. Yak-28RL, radiation intelligence aircraft conceived by fitting RR-8311-100 air sampling pods, with no other specialist equipment. Modification of a number of existing Yak-28L aircraft. Yak-28PP, deployed in 1970, it is notable as the first Soviet electronic countermeasures aircraft. Unarmed, with an extensive electronic warfare suite in the bomb bay and various aerials and dielectric panels for transmitting the jamming signals. Excess heat generated by the jamming equipment was dissipated by heat exchangers under the center fuselage. No radome. Produced in the 1970s in unknown numbers. Yak-28VV proposition, a vertical takeoff and landing project, with two A-27 AF300 lift cruise engines and four A-39P300 lift engines in the forward fuselage. Yak-28 LSH proposition, light attack aircraft project competing with Ilyushin Il-102 and Sukhoi T-8, eliminated at an early stage. Yak-28P, a dedicated long-range interceptor version, the Yak-28P was developed from 1960 and deployed operationally from 1964. It omitted the internal weapons bay in favor of additional fuselage tanks, and added a new R11 interception radar compatible with the A-98 air-to-air missile. Late production upgraded Yak-28 picoseconds had a longer radome of pure conical shape and enhanced armament. Produced until 1967, with 435 built. Yak-28PM prototype, upgraded Yak-28P with R11 AF3-300 engines. Flight testing started in 1963 but development abandoned when the R11 AF3-300 did not enter production. The re-engined PM modification has established a speed record of 2,400 km per hour in 1963. Yak-28 UAP prototype, rocket-boosted high-altitude interceptor prototype. Yak-28-64 prototype. Extensively redesigned Yak-28P with Tumansky R11 F2-300 engines moved to the rear fuselage with intakes extending to the cockpit, intended to compete with the Sukhoi Su-15. Performance was very disappointing, being slower than the Yak-28P, and serious aileron reversal issues caused the abandonment of the Yak-28-64. Operators: Russia, Russian Air Force, Soviet Union, Soviet Air Force, Soviet Anti-Air Defense, Turkmenistan, Military of Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Ukrainian Air Force operated 35 aircraft. Specifications. General characteristics: crew, 2, length, 21.6 meters, wingspan, 12.50 m, height, 3.95 m, wing area, 37.6 miles squared, empty weight, 9,970 kilograms, loaded weight, 15,000 kilograms, max takeoff weight, 20,000 kilograms, power plant, 2 Tumansky R11 afterburning turbojets, 46 kilonewtons dry, 62 kilonewtons with afterburning each, performance, maximum speed, 1840 km per hour, range, 2,500 km, service ceiling, 16,750 m, wing loading, 531 kilograms mass squared, thrust weight. 0.62, armament, 2 A-98M air-to-air missiles, usually one A-98TM infrared and one A-98RM semi-active radar homing, 2 K-13A short-range missiles. See also, related development, Yakovlev Yak-25, Yakovlev Yak-27, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, Blackburn Buccaneer, Douglas A-3D Sky Warrior, Douglas B-66 Destroyer, McDonnell F-101 Voodoo, Sud Aviation Vautour. References, notes. Bibliography. External links, the Yakovlev Yak-25 and Yak-28 Air Vectors, German, Aero Concept.